What do you think of when I say Star Wars? Maybe you think of lightsabers, or space battles, or improbable starry explosions. Or, more likely, maybe you think of this. The opening crawls of the Star Wars Saga are iconic. They're part of what makes Star Wars what it is. They're so integral to the formula that the Clone Wars TV show decided to adapt them into spoken radio drama style introductions before each episode. And fans lashed out when it was revealed that Rogue One, the first non-saga Star Wars movie, wouldn't have one. But what I find interesting is that the opening crawls aren't revolutionary. They're outdated, the legacy of times long past when storytelling demanded a few paragraphs of exposition to make sense. Star Wars isn't the first movie to have text before it starts. In fact, text in movies is just about as old as the art form itself. During the silent film era, blocks of text called intertitles would be spliced into video clips in order to explain what was happening or tell us what a character was saying. It was an integral part of how movies were made up until the arrival of talkies, the first films to have actual audio instead of just a musical score. After that, text was largely limited to credits at the beginning of the film. By the 1970s, text was still showing up at the beginning of movies, but not nearly as frequently. One example that comes to mind is the opening of The Godfather Part 2. But even this is an oddity, one of the last in a dying practice in film. So why did George Lucas decide to use them? Lucas is part of a small movement in American film, a member of a group often called the Cinema Brats. He, along with others like Francis Ford Coppola and Steven Spielberg, was brought up watching classic cinema, but had ideas that would drastically change the way we make movies. So, how did he end up using the opening crawl for his credits sequence? The most likely answer comes from all the way back in 1939. Before movies had color, there was Flash Gordon. One of Lucas's self-proclaimed inspirations for Star Wars, Flash Gordon was a movie serial, in particular a set of 12 episodes of about 15 minutes, that came out over the course of the year. Since audiences couldn't be expected to just remember everything that happened in the previous installment, and a large portion of the audience would be children that might not have seen the previous episode, text was included at the beginning of every serial that caught watchers up to speed. And since Star Wars starts with Episode 4, right in the middle of the action, it makes sense that Lucas might include a bit of text to clue us in. Oh, and also from 1939, a movie called Union Pacific, which features an opening that might seem familiar. Another reason for the crawl might be the general messiness of Star Wars as a whole. The movie was famously saved in the edit, with various creative voices, including Lucas's wife, making drastic changes to the sequence and style of the film, and making it what we know and love. The crawl serves to introduce us to the entire universe of Star Wars, and explain what our heroes and villains are fighting over. George Lucas loves movies. He was inspired by some of the earliest films, and it makes sense that he would use some tricks from that early era to tell his own story. But for a moment, let's take a step back and appreciate just what he did. He took a filmmaking tool from the silent movie era, resurrected it, and made it perhaps the most iconic feature of his blockbuster. And he made it in such a way that it's become synonymous with his story, part of his auteur's toolkit, to the point where the crawl is exclusively property of Star Wars, of George Lucas. and that's pretty impressive.